Hello, and welcome to round one of this 8-man with Modern Allies. Oh, that does not look like a keeper. 5 lands, no lands. Not a good start. Fortunately, I have a feeling this deck is not one that recovers from mulligans very well because each card really adds a lot to what you're doing. This is, this is a pretty standard aggro deck mulligan sequence of like 5 lands, can't keep, not enough lands, ship, end up on 5 with like 2 lands, 3 spells, see what happens. So, I'll see if this deck pulls it out or not. Well, our opponent also chose to mulligan, so that's okay. See, this is an acceptable 5. Can't even honestly say I'd rather have Horizon Canopy than that. I feel like there should be some number of that card, as I said, but I decided I'd rather just play the deck as is. Not mess around too much with a known quantity. Not the exchange I would like to see set up, but happens. Some kind of Esper deck? This is probably either like the Chapin Delve deck or some kind of Gifts deck. Or just fairies? Okay. Well, I've played against fairies a lot in my day. This is not how you want to start. So, on our... Maybe they're Polymorph? I guess that's also a deck. So, on my opponent's next upkeep, I'm going to fire off this company. Or right now. I like right now. The idea being upkeep because of potential spell stutter sprite. So I would like the big creatures right now. Oh boy. Probably should just press F7. Always yes. Always yield. Always yes. Always yield. This is going to get tedious fast, I think. Okay. Please don't make an Emrakul. So I'm going to play around with some instants here. So it looks like our opponent's just on some kind of like fairies deck. Path. Sure. Also okay. Don't think it's time to fire off either of our spells yet. I would like to fire off the Evangel into not Mana Leak mana. Opponent could just be on some weird Esper deck too. Opponent is not representing Cryptic Command, which I think is pretty big for us. Some kind of Esper Tokens deck? Yeah, I have no clue at all what's going on. Well, flying clearly does not matter. So let's just make the biggest possible idiots as we can. Oh my gosh, how... F7. No! This is horrible. This is my nightmare. Oh my gosh, why did I play this deck? This was a horrible mistake. Well, that card's probably not very good here. Hooray! Trying to figure out, like, what my opponent's deck is trying to do. Okay, well, I'm just going to kill my opponent because they're clearly setting up for a Wrath of some kind. Or I guess they could have Slaughter Pact. But if they have Slaughter Pact, I am declaring defeat. And by that I mean I probably still win. White. Well, that got wild real fast. Collected Company Allies is some good business. So I'm guessing I don't want Path to Exile against this deck. I just want, like, Return to the Ranks. I'm going to leave in 2 Path. I think there's a chance my opponent has something like complete nonsense like Baneslayer. I could board in Celestial Purge for Bitter Blossom, but I mean they could bit like I actually have no idea. Like I'm mostly scared of like Baneslayer Angel or I mean big white lifelink creatures really, or Mistbind Click. And Path to Exile beats both of those, so that sounds great. Don't want Clerics, don't want Canonists, don't want Command, Wear Tear, all that. Yeah. Just return to the ranks, run my stuff into counter spells, bring it back. I'm willing to keep this on the draw. This hand is pretty good and has an Aether Vial. I think that in... I don't actually know what you're supposed to do with these hands in general in these decks. It probably varies just so much depending on deck. Well, you could just draw that card. This probably just fetches an untap white-green. So I think the goal here is that Aether Vial... So my opponent might leave up like a Mana Leak here to KO my 2-drop. So there is an incentive to lead on the Heath. I'm going to have to fetch a white-green anyways because I want to cast like this. Actually, yeah, I want to lead on this in case of like Detention Sphere or Bile Blight or something like that. So I can lead on these two, let my opponent choose which dies, and then double down later. So my opponent's not killing my creatures, and I'm fine usually. I do like how this deck that is one pretty sweet thing for these decks is that the card Path Exile is actually pretty bad against you because it ramps you into your collected companies. Choose wisely. Reminder to name human on this card. Almost named ally on principle, but probably name human. You know, technically correct play, considering I have 5 cards that would then make counterable, as opposed to 0. Gosh, that'd be a huge tilt because the one it's all two or it's not you want to leave Aether Vial on 2 in this deck, I believe. You have 12 twos, 8 ones, 6 threes, and if you name the wrong thing on Cavern with Aether Vial in play on 2, then you're just kind of stuck. Hugh. Yeah. Probably just lead on Blade Master. Well, always yield. Always yes. Still really fuzzy as to what my opponent's deck is doing besides just like being Esper cards. Like Bitter Blossom as just a card is kind of unexciting outside of Blue Mirrors. White, blue. Okay. That is a thing that it can be doing. Snapcaster Mage is a fun and fair magic card. Just not sure why Bitter Blossom is the card of choice to go with that. Like, legitimately trying to figure out what other cards are in my opponent's deck because there's so many different things you can be doing with Esper. Like, what Bitter Blossom points to. Put that up to 2. Caw. Yeah, let's not get Disrupting Shoulder for, like, no reason. Get Disrupting Shoulder because I'm too lazy to click. That would be great. Yeah, I guess this is, like, the real reason to not play 4 Razorverge Thicket is because if I just draw Thicket here, it is bad. Yep. Get in there, Riot Devils. Hopefully I don't get, like, Dark Blasted. That'd be pretty miserable. So this is the classic, this is like a pretty common scenario with this card. Where, like, you end up in these spots where you're beating down for enough to not care. So you just don't cast it. No. The fact that my opponent didn't kill either of my creatures when I attacked last turn is kind of interesting. That was the wrong one to choose. So the reason for that, it's not. I think that was the wrong one to choose because I'm clearly just like playing to not die to stupid control cards. If my opponent was worried about like my beatdown draw or my like combo out potential with the company, that's like the best. But realistically, the ability for me to leave this Aether Vial at the best number, like the number that I've been choosing to leave it to, and then redeploy my threat with it is pretty good for me. Whereas if I had to add a counter to the Aether Vial, for example, to like replay my Falconer this turn, I think that would be a much bigger blow. Yeah, this card is just like, it allows you so much flexibility against the control decks. I was noticing that when I was playing the green-white Aspect to Hydra Company deck in Standard earlier this year. That, like, you just reach these board states against control where you'd be, like, a little bit ahead, and then their options were, like, play a sweeper, and then the board just ends up in, like, the same or a slightly worse state, or play something else, and then just you like win. Like there was a board at Grand Prix Toronto where my opponent like tapped out for Ojutai, facing down like 6 power of creatures, one of which they could block into my open mana, and then like ended the next turn at like 3 life, facing down 17 power, 4 of which was like indestructible Fleece Maiden Lion, and having chump blocked with their Ojutai to not die. I was just like, geez. And it seems like this is a very similar Fields of Collected Company, like this kind of matchup. And it's kind of another big blow to a control deck in Modern that's like that, because, so yeah, I would have, oh yeah, my opponent would have been stone cold dead. Yeah, that's like a really huge blow to control decks in Modern, that this card exists, because like, you're supposed to beat up on these random aggro decks, and that's just not a thing anymore. Oh well. Too bad, Supreme Verdict.